I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Kenny Ingersoll. Kenny is a financial planner, professional, and educator. He is also a mentor, podcaster, and entrepreneur. Today, I want to find out from Kenny what advice he has for people in their finances. What are some essential goals that we should have, whether we're young, middle aged, or older? Join me today in my conversation with Kenny Ingersoll. I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Kenny Ingersoll. Good day, fine sir.
Good day, Brian. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I'm well. Thank you for coming on. Kenny, will you be able to tell us, because I know that your resume or your LinkedIn profile has you a man of many things. I was speaking to Joey Only yesterday, and he was the mountain man, a man of many skills and talents, and you seem to maybe the city man of many skills and talents as well. Can you let us know what industry you're in and maybe what you're up to nowadays?
My primary focus is I'm a financial professional. I help people with their finances, savings, retirement, things of that nature. Then I do some real estate investing, and I also do podcasting of my own. I have a podcast called Dread No Mondays. We help people kind of
Sorry, say that name again.
dread no Mondays.
Dread mill, like to dread beyond the mill of Mondays. Dread mill Mondays.
Dread no Mondays. You no longer dread Mondays.
Yeah.
We help them find something they could focus on, positive, whatever that metaphorical Monday is.
Mm-hmm. So that's what you're up to nowadays. Will you be able to bring us back, Kenny? What, in knowing that you're in real estate and finance, you're an entrepreneur, a mentor, and podcaster. When did it all start? At what age did you start to work, or even do some things around the house that amounted to work?
It was pretty young, fairly young, about 7, 8. My parents were entrepreneurs. They were business owners, and I liked it. And for the longest time, I knew I had that bug in me.
What did
And
you do at age 7 and 8?
I helped my parents with their businesses. I kind of got a little taste of what it takes to run a business.
What kind of business was it? What were you doing specifically?
My dad owned a electrical contracting company,
Mm-hmm.
so I helped him, with the work he had there with wiring up buildings and houses, and go getting parts and schedule.
You were a gopher.
I was a gopher.
Because it's hard for me to imagine you at 7 wiring a house or why. I mean, hey, maybe you could have, and there are kids out there that can do those things, but I'm trying to picture it. A few years ago, I don't know if the Health and Safety Board would allow that to happen, but I can imagine being a gopher.
Yeah. At that point, it was more of a go get the screwdriver with the red handle on it, or go get that box of wire nuts kind of thing.
Great times, though.
As I grew older, it progressed upward, and my understanding increased.
How long did you stay with your dad's company?
He did that for several years, and then my parents decided to close that down, and so I just stayed off and on with that for the next 5 or 10 years before they closed it down.
So you right up into high school, this was your full-time job, or the job that you did most frequently?
Most frequently, I still had other jobs and stuff, but I'd go help him as much as I could, and because I wanted to learn, and I of course loved being with my parents. And
very good. What about into high school? Were you were still doing this, or what was another job maybe you were doing?
During like middle school, high school, I was kind of floating along, kind of going with the flow, if you will. I worked at a pizza chain, just doing some odds and ends. And then it wasn't until a few years after high school that I finally, the entrepreneur bug really kicked in, and I started pursuing it more.
Well, what about in high school? What was your idea for finishing high school? Were you thinking college, university? You know, was that kind of seed starting to plant for being an entrepreneur and doing something completely different? What were you starting to think in high school?
In high school, I was thinking of college. I actually did college for a semester, and then circumstance had that I didn't pursue it beyond that. Um, and I wasn't quite sure what avenue I wanted to. I first pursued music, and then I pursued RVing and camping because I love RVing and camping. So I pursued that quite a bit in different avenues and just kind of trying back and forth a few different things and event planning and just trying to find that fit for me.
So you were kind of, and I did the same thing. Well, what I did was meander between different positions and trying to find what you were good at, trying to figure out what your talents, your skills were, where other people saw that you were beneficial. That's what I did all through my 20s. How about you?
Exactly, finding what I was beneficial at, what I liked, and then just growing and learning and having a better understanding of what business is and entrepreneurship is, as I weave through that journey.
So what did you find in your 20s that seemed to be maybe the entrepreneurial bug, but specifically, what were some talents and skills that you were able to bring to a table, say in your 30s? I'm assuming you're 30 something.
Yeah, one of the big things was commitment and being willing to, you know, um, do what I say I'm going to do. You know, um, I'm learning and understanding as much as I can about that thing. If I say I'm going to help someone do this, or if I'm going to pursue this, or someone challenged me to do, let's say, this over here, I would learn as much as I could and try and get as much experience, as much exposure, mentorship as I could.
So, how did you find yourself getting into finance, finding yourself to be a mentor, finding yourself in financial education, of which I know you have classes for? How did you start to crystallize that for yourself?
And actually, it happened because my wife's cousin has been in finance for um, close to 20 years, and he introduced us to the company that he's with, and just the education that they have, opened my eyes to wanting to help others, not only myself and my family, but then helping others to have access to that education and those tools, and excuse me, um, and then just wanting to serve others and help others, all ships rise with the tide sort of thing.
So, as you were getting into finance, you were probably getting a better idea of your own finances, maybe a better appreciation. What is some key points that you've realized for people to be essential, say, as goals in their financial freedom?
One thing is being clear and honest at where you are and where you want to go.
Mhm.
A lot of people say, they're fine or they're good, or things are happy, jolly, go lucky, but in all reality, they're up the creek without a paddle. Because they're either not fully comprehending how bad the situation is, if you will, or in denial. So that's the biggest key starting point.
But Kenny, what happens in, excuse me, when people do not know where they need to go or where they should go? Because a lot of us, I mean, for me, I did not say invest money even hardly now. So I could talk to someone else and say, well, you should have done this, this, and this, and this. And being younger and more immature, one, it's the perfect time to invest, but two, not having the maturity, I don't know what I should do. So do you have some, say, overarching goals people should probably consider with their finances, especially, I mean, in an ideal situation, you're an infant and people invest in a bank account for you, or you're a child and you're throwing some of your pennies or dollars into some account, maybe even into your teenage years, you're doing something. But in your 20s, when you're starting, most people are getting a career or some sort of consistent employment. What are some things that we should really hone in on, some specific goals for our finances that you suggest anyway?
Yeah, well, everybody's goals, of course, will be different. So it will be catered to what they want. But one thing is think long term. When you're 18, 20-year olds,
It's hard. It's hard to
yeah, you're
think
like,
long term.
I've got plenty of time. I could think about that later. When in reality, like you said, now's the time to act on that and take advantage of that time that you have on your side, and then um, what are your dreams? What are your goals? What do you want to do? A lot of people, from what I've found, have unfortunately put their dreams on the back burner on the top shelf, because they don't see it happening or they don't see a way to make it come to life, you know. So one thing we try to do is help them pull those dreams back out and dust them off and work towards those goals, help them believe that they're achievable, they can be achieved, or you can acquire them.
Are you suggesting people, say, diversify, break up their money and put a percentage here, percentage there, keep some under your pillow? Do you have some general um, advice for people who, just to give them an idea of what looking forward could be?
Again, it goes back to what they want. Is their focus on over here, the next 5 to 10 years, is they got a big goal versus in 30 years, they got a big goal. So it's kind of customized to that. But a general rule is what we call 10, 10, 10, 70.
Okay.
And if you're familiar, it's 10% to a tithing or charity, 10% to long-term savings, and 10% to short-term savings. And then the remaining 70% is your lifestyle, your bills, your utilities, your car payment, your vacations, all that falls under that 70%. And that way you've got some basis, if you will, established for your short-term and long-term. And at the beginning, those numbers can be tweaked. If you can't do 10, 10, 10, you could do 3, 3, 3, or 5, 5, 5, whatever those numbers have to be. And then you could tweak them as you go along, as you hit those milestones.
What do you think now? A lot of talk about cryptocurrency and all that. Is that part of, say, a long-term investment, short-term investment, a portfolio for people? Is that something yourself you get into, or is that a little too risky, a little too uncertain?
I haven't dabbled myself too much in that personally. I've done a little bit. I would say it's more for a kind of a long term, depending on how much liquid cash you have to put in. But I would say it would be more of a long term investment versus a short term.
Short-term gains, short-term thinking that you're going to get rich quick, sort of thing.
Correct.
What about you, Kenny? What is the process that you go through in your work each day and the various things that you do? How do you get going? What keeps you going, and how do you end it, say, through a week, an average week?
My weeks can vary between the companies that I run and whatnot. Um, I just sit down on a week by week and then a day by day basis and prioritize what has to happen throughout that week. And then, of course, priority number one is family. So that is everything else revolves around my family. It's not the other way around for me.
Why is that, Kenny? I mean, I notice as well you're a family man, father, and you've mentioned a couple of times of being a family man. What is your perspective on that, and you know, to give people some insight, because not a lot of people do that. And I think most people would like to put their family first, but sometimes we get off track, or we get doing a project, or just buried in our work, and it becomes a little harder to come up for air. So how did that, I mean, as a kid, you were working with your family business and you said that you wanted to be with your families, but how did it kind of manifest for you in being a family man?
Just for me, knowing that that's what I wanted, I've worked really hard to make sure that my businesses, my schedule allows me to do that as much as possible. I know sometimes that's not always the case. Even there are some days, some weeks where it's 70% business and 30% family, but then there are other weeks that it's 90% family and 10% business, just depending on what's going on. And then I always have in the back of my mind, that my family is why I work, and so they're the main reason I keep going. They're the main reason I work so hard and push so hard and stuff like that. And they also deserve my time as much as more than any other thing I've got going on.
What is some difficulty that you have in your job, and maybe some of those things that take you away from your family, but also what are some satisfactions you get from your work?
The difficulties is, my cell phone's on me all the time. And so I'm constantly getting emails or text messages or whatever, and sometimes it's hard to put my phone aside and, concentrate more fully on my family. Or sometimes as a business owner, things pop up, you got to go put out a fire here or a fire there or what have you. So that takes me away, unforeseen circumstances like that. But some of the upside, is having more of that control, more of that direction and control, knowing where I want my schedule to be and what I want it to focus around. A lot of times I can take my work remotely. We enjoy camping, so I'll work while we're camping. I'll set aside some time here and there during the days, and I'll go do some work, and then the rest of the time we're out camping or traveling or wherever. So I've been able to make that possible.
In your career now, what is a skill that you've developed or had to hone in on as you increase in your abilities?
One of the biggest skills that I've had to hone in on slash constantly improve is the way I approach things, like my mindset, not letting that self-doubt get in the way, you know, um, or not letting those limiting beliefs get in the way, and then continually to dream big, think big, and see the potential that I have out there.
Seeing that you started so young, I think you're one of the youngest people that has worked. I think that a lot of people do some things for the family, but you were specifically working in a company as a gopher, and knowing that you've switched a few different jobs throughout your career. Do you have some advice for people who are just getting into work one way or the other, whether for the first time or changing your career?
Yeah, things aren't always going to be sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be days you're going to have to do stuff you don't want to, but if you stick with it and you continue to not let those limiting beliefs get in your way, then your potential is essentially endless of what you can do and what you can achieve. And as far as like switching back and forth, that's okay. I relate that to going on a road trip. and sometimes there's going to be detours and construction or whatever. You just gotta find the right path around it and a different approach. And then also on some of those things, you'll learn. Like for the different jobs that I've had, I've made valuable connections. I've learned different skills and had my mind opened, if you will, my eyes opened to different processes, approaches, things of that nature that I probably wouldn't have gotten the same otherwise.
Yeah, we definitely learn a lot from what we see as maybe setbacks. Like if we change a career, is there anything that you've learned that you wish you would have known starting off in your work? I mean, even in finance, where I wish I would have invested into something, is there something like that that you wish you would have known something?
Yeah, one of my biggest things was I wish I would have, like I said, way back when. And then like we referred to earlier, 18, 20-year olds, I wish I would have started then, you know,
Started
learning
what?
things,
Started what?
investing or learning different things, growing your mindset, being open-minded to different possibilities, just gathering as much good knowledge as possible and just starting way back when instead of waiting 20 years.
In your, is there something specific in finance you would have invested in? And obviously, if I would have known that Google or Amazon would have been so big, but is there some sort of sector that you would have maybe concentrated on, maybe buying a home earlier or investing in a retirement savings? Is there something in particular that you would have focused on?
Yeah, and the retirement savings I would have started because we have life insurance that has a savings platform piggybacked on it, if you will. And I would have started that a lot sooner. And then also investing in real estate, I would have started a lot sooner.
What about when people talk about money? What is it? The love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money. Some people say money is the root of evil. No, it's not. It's the love of money. And being in the financial sector, what is a character trait that you've found to be essential for you and in your colleagues and the people that are working in and around money?
I would say, just a different mindset, different approach, just the way you use money, because money is a tool, and if you know how to use it properly and what money can do and what money it can work for you or work against you, but just having that proper mindset and that correct approach with it, I would say is a huge one, a huge character and the way people think about money.
Knowing, Kenny, that you tried college, but you've also, in your financial career now, you're learning a lot of other stuff. What is your view, not only of education generally? It doesn't have to be formal education, but it could be informal education. What is your view of education, but also of exercise and how that plays a role in our work?
Education, I am a huge advocate of it. If your pursuits um, involve college and formal education, I'm all for it and stuff. But I'm also for book learning, podcast, mentorship. You find a good mentor, things of that nature. I'm constantly listening to audiobooks, constantly reading books. I'm constantly learning as much as I can. And then exercise, is huge because they kind of tie together. You feel good, you do good. So
What
if you
what do you do for exercise, Kenny?
most of my exercise for me is just staying busy, with playing with my kids, doing stuff outside. We try to travel when we can, things like that. Going for walks.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few exercise pieces of equipment in the house that I jump on, but most of mine I try to just stay physically active and moving about, and of course trying to keep my diet as healthy as possible.
I try to too, but yesterday I was eating a Krispy Kreme donut that was left over from 2 days ago. Those things should be, if there's anything in the world that should be illegal, it should be Krispy Kreme donuts. Those things are delicious.
Yeah.
And we have exercise equipment, but it kind of gets a little dusty. So then it just becomes some other piece of furniture. The other day I wore exercise clothes intending to go exercise. I wore them all day and then just kind of folded. I didn't fold them. I just threw them in the corner at the end of the day. I didn't really use them. So I think it's these things, and you're touching upon it with education as well. And it's something I need to do better with, is staying sharp, staying focused, reading, ingesting things the best that we can in the idea of our mind. And that's with the mindset you said, but also exercising, getting out, getting, limble. Was it limble? Nimble? Nimble?
Nimble.
And just getting some blood flowing. I think it's good for our mind as well as our body. Do you have an overarching goal for all the work that you're doing, whether it's a financial professional or educator or mentor? Do you have a goal?
My ultimate goal is to help as many people as I can, with whatever their goals are. Help them. If I help them, you know, um, see the possibility that's out there, or if I help them pull their dreams off the shelf, or if I help them find a good book that makes a huge positive impact on their life, and primarily with my own kids, if I help them in their future life, whatever their course may be, that's my goal, is to try and help others grow and learn even more than I have, and be able to, help the other ships rise with the tide.
Is there anything, Kenny, that people may not understand about you as you try to help people and you do the work that you do? Is there anything that people may not understand about you where if they understood this, they would have a better appreciation of you and the work that you do?
Um, I think some of it is, just having those limiting beliefs in themselves, so they don't see the clear path. They don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why I chose the route I did, kind of thing, or why I recommend something. If that makes sense, is just, them not having that experience, not having that belief.
What is it that they may not understand about you that by them understanding, even if they do have a limited belief, what would you like people to understand about you?
Just have faith, I guess. I'm learning as well, so just hoping that I can show them what I've learned as I learn, continue to learn and grow.
Is there some adversity that you have faced in life, Kenny, where it maybe positively or negatively affects your work? And by using this adversity, you can encourage other people in the adversity that they faced on a daily basis in their work?
I'm going back to the limiting beliefs, self-doubt, or the naysayers, if you will. I get a lot of adversity from, they might not intentionally be wanting to try and hold me back, but just, oh, be careful, or you've never done that before, or how do you know how to do this, or whatever, or you have no experience in that field, kind of thing. And their intentions are good, but it also could act as a block if you let it, or
Mm-hmm.
their naysayer.
So to encourage others, you would say, don't listen to the naysayers. As my buddy Frankie McDonald says, don't listen to the trolls, right? Don't listen to the people who will try to stop you along the way.
Exactly. One of my favorite quotes is, not to, it's not only to prove them wrong, to prove the naysayers wrong and do it in spite of them, but also to prove myself right. If you have that belief in you, they say I can't do it, but I know I can. So I'm not only going to prove them wrong, but more importantly, I'm going to prove myself right.
I think of my dear wife, because in that's actually pretty wise. In that many times I'm trying to prove myself right to my dear wife. So I'm right, but it doesn't mean I'm right. So I better get the other side of the equation and make sure that I am able to prove that what I'm doing or saying is correct. So to prove myself to be right, or to prove to myself that I can do this thing, it's vital. So yeah, if you're just going out there and trying to prove to everyone what you're doing just to get them on board, you might be on a sinking ship, as you mentioned the ships a couple of times. Is there anything else, Kenny, that we haven't touched upon that you think is worth mentioning?
I would say the biggest thing, and we kind of hinted at this a little bit, is just start.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at with whatever you have, just start.
Yeah. How can people get in touch with you, Kenny? How can they get in contact with you?
I'm on social media. I am all over Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I've got my podcast. It's on Anchor and YouTube called Dreadnought Mondays. I'll drop the links to that as well.
Okay. Perfect. One final question. You kind of answered it, but maybe specifically, Kenny, why do you work?
Why do I work? Because I know that I am not yet fulfilled what I'm supposed to do. I know I have a purpose and a passion to continue to fulfill.
Kenny Ingersoll, financial professional, educator, mentor, entrepreneur, and podcast host. Thank you for your time, the time that you have given me, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I'm BrianVee. That was a nice chat with Kenny. I think he is a humble man who has much to offer in the lines of finance for his clients. If you want to be a guest on my show, just email me at whywework, brianv@gmail.com. Or if you know someone else that would make a good guest or bring value to the show, I would appreciate that as well. Please like, share, comment, and hit that notification button. All of those things are important and help me continue on with this show. Again, I'm BrianVee, and this is Why We Work.